I sometimes get asked why I do what I do, why we do what we do. And I say it's because we see the injustice that the Palestinians face every single day, not just for the last 20 months, but for decades. We believe that our collective movement can make a difference. We believe that we can win justice for the Palestinian people. But most importantly, we know that when we do get justice for the Palestinian people, we will be the people stood on the right side of history. I'm sure many of you are tired, but as Omar Barghouti often reminds us, we know we do not have the luxury of genocide fatigue. We are filled with rage, but we know that rage is not enough to end this genocide. We come to this conference, all of us, with a range of emotions and sentiments. We come to mark, to honour 20 years of collective organising, inspired and led by the broadest and most unified voice of the Palestinian people, which, in the words of the Boycott National Committee, has redefined the meaning of solidarity in the Palestinian struggle as the task of ending the complicity of states, corporations and institutions with Israel's regime of oppression. We come to mark the impact of this movement, which today sees Israel more isolated in the court of global popular opinion and institutionally than at any moment during the 77 years of its existence as an oppressive, supremacist state. But we come to share the grief of the Palestinian people, that this collective force is now having to be mobilised to confront the darkest moment in that struggle for liberation. It's having to focus on ending a genocide and Israel's open plan to carry out another crime of historic magnitude, the mass ethnic cleansing of the whole of Gaza. It is, or ought to be beyond all of our comprehension, our capacity to imagine our deepest fears that we are now well over 600 days into a genocide which has slaughtered well over 58,000 Palestinians, destroyed every part of the infrastructure of life in Gaza. And now Israel is unleashing new horrors, new levels of barbarity, that still do not create a red line for our political leaders to end their support, including their military cooperation. Having starved the population of Gaza for 3 months, during which no food, no water or aid was allowed in, having set up a fake humanitarian agency with none of the relevant expertise to deliver meagre amounts of aid, Israel is now sending its forces to slaughter those queuing for these basic sprouts. Over 700 have been killed in the past 2 months. 2 days ago, another horror, that drew no minister in this country to the dispatch box to condemn it, barely made the front pages. Israel slaughtered 15 Palestinians, including 10 young children, queuing at a clinic for nutritional supplements. And now, openly and without shame, Israel unveils plans to corral all of the Palestinians of Gaza to what it is not possible to describe in any other way than as a concentration camp built on ruins and destroyed matter, making clear that this is a holding zone for a planned forced expulsion. David Lammy was asked about this plan in Foreign Affairs Select Committee. He described it as a sticking point. Planning mass ethnic cleansing on a historically unparalleled scale is a sticking point. It is for the courts, apparently, not David Lammy, who would say, to decide if building concentration camps and forcibly expelling 2 million people are war crimes.
Sure.
Israel's foreign minister declared all these plans apparently is not a reason to stop shipping his government weapons. The world has been turned on its head. A state slaughtering 60,000 people, destroying hospitals, schools, forcibly starving children, cannot be judged to be genocidal, but is, apparently, a democratic ally we should still sell arms to and trade normally with. The people who should be regarded as terrorists and treated accordingly are not the perpetrators of these crimes, but those who protest against them, apparently. Artists like Nika, People like Palestine Action, who have tried to disrupt through non-violent action the flow of weapons to Israel. People who should be investigated for war crimes and sent to court are apparently people like this Nyman and Beth Jamal, not British citizens who have gone out to commit atrocities with the IDF, who are treated like heroes by figures like the Chief Rabbi. Speaking words of hatred against the genocidal army, as Bob Miller did from the stage at Glastonbury, is a hate crime. Describing a leader of a genocidal state who is a fugitive from justice at the ICC as an ally and a friend is apparently diplomacy and good politics here. Several months ago, Eric Cantona said, "If Gaza is lost, then humanity is lost." In speaking to the reality that the world's leaders allowing a live-stream genocide to unfold without consequence is a manifestation of a complete breakdown of the system of a rule-based media, of the institutions and structures designed to protect all of our rights. We are entering an arena where might is right, where the most powerful nation on earth can declare a plan to remove every Palestinian from Gaza, rebuild it as a playground for the rich, and when asked on what authority, it's to comply my own. A world where a UN Special Rapporteur calling for action against companies complicit in aiding and abetting a genocide finds herself subject to sanctions. This collapse of global rules-based order, the rule of international law, is bleeding into the domestic arena as governments, in order to cover their complicity in Israel's crimes, introduce more and more repressive laws to silence those challenging their actions. We should all remember and heed the words of Jeremy Corbyn. Fascism does not arrive in uniform overnight. It arrives with suited politicians, one piece of legislation or executive order at a time. All of this oppression is designed to isolate the Palestinian people and leave them isolated, but it is not working. It is Israel that is becoming isolated. And here we see the success of over 20 years of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement and the principles on which it was founded. The Palestinian liberation struggle has always been intertwined with global struggles for liberation. The BNC said in its statement commemorating the 20-year anniversary, the BDS movement has nurtured deep intersectional connections between our struggles and those for racial, economic, social, climate and gender justice worldwide. Israel's efforts to delegitimize this movement has been based on a strategy of separating the Palestinian struggle from other progressive causes, making it something that has to sit outside the tent of progressive values, something toxic and racist. The strategy is failing. Over the last 2 years, we have seen how the support for the Palestinian struggle has mushroomed across every sector of our society. Students, trade unions, faith groups, climate justice groups, the struggle for LGBT+ rights. We at PSC are proud of the role we have played in the UK forging these intersectional links. An opinion poll we commissioned on the day we surrounded Parliament with 10,000 people showed that by a margin of 4 to 1, British public support our demands for a full arms embargo, for councils to divest from companies complicit in the oppression of the Palestinian people, for supermarkets to stop selling Israeli goods, and with a majority even in favour of expelling Israel from the UN. And here in the UK, this support is translating into important campaign victories. Kingston became the 13th council to announce plans to divest from complicit companies. Co-op became the first UK supermarket to ban all Israeli goods from the shelves. Our movement has grown massively over the last 2 years, not just here, but globally. That has been on the back of the most horrific assault on the Palestinian people. We are here today because we must do more. We must answer the government's attempt to oppress us by raising our voices louder, by building the campaigns you're going to hear about today. Our consumer boycott targeting high street stores, the student movement challenging complicity in their universities, the cultural boycott, our campaign against Barclays Bank, And we must put more pressure on our government to end all arms sales to Israel and to impose sanctions. As Omar reminded us earlier, our obligation is to do no harm. We must do that not just in our words, but in our actions too. We cannot allow our movement to be silenced. We must continue to march, to protest, to boycott, to raise our voices until all Palestinians from the river to the sea are finally free. Solidarity.